fast life, the fast living. They see the ambition, they know I'm past driven. Look, we are not the same, this is not a game. I be swerving through the city in and out of lanes. Yeah, cause if I see it, then I want it, then you better know I got it. Ain't no options, I'm about to do the damn thing. I'm an outlaw, you can never catch me. I'm in first place, you can never.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Ron.
And today we are back to discuss one of our favorites. Godfather of Harlem is here for season 3. So we are excited to kick off our discussion of episode 1 titled The Negro in White America. And I'll start off by saying, I was anxiously waiting for the season 3 announcement because it seemed like they were gone forever. I'm like, okay, they really left us hanging here. So tell us when it's gonna be on again. And then it was announced that they were headed to a new network. So Epix, it used to be on Epix, it's now MGM Plus. So happy to see that this show is still, off for another season. And then we're getting a lot of new stuff this season. We have a new Malcolm. Nigel Thatch has been replaced by Jason Allen Carvel, who so far has done a great job, filling those big shoes. So hats off to him. And then, I also want to send rest in peace to Paul Sorvino because he passed last year. And that was a big blow because I loved him as Frank Costello. So that was some really sad news for this whole show here. But I am beyond excited to discuss this episode because it has so much going on. And I know when we interviewed Chris Brancato, the showrunner and writer for Godfather of Harlem, we were like, so what's going to happen? The doji burned up. And he was like, we do have to reconcile that.
I really felt bad for Bumpy. I mean, he lost his doji, and who could imagine losing that much that kind of drugs and that much money in a riot? I mean,
and that was going to be a game changer for him.
It would have been. And he was so mortified by it. And yet here again, I love little Mamie. Oh, I shouldn't say little Mamie, I should say Mrs. Mamie, big Mamie, because she was right there to hold him up and encourage him that loss was just temporary and that he's going to come back bigger and better. Although I don't think she had any idea just how he would do it.
Well, I think this is the first time we've ever really seen Bumpy in this state. Like, I have never seen him under this much duress to the point where he was just spazzing on everybody.
Everything. Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, this must be real bad because he's been in some binds before and he's always managed to work something out, but he was under some real pressure this time around.
Yes, he was.
Were you going to say something, Tiff?
No.
Okay, I thought I cut you off, but it started off the episode with a flash forward because we're in a situation where they look like they're robbing the bank delivery truck of the money, and it looks like Bumpy had gotten caught. And so I'm like, uh-oh. I don't think I remember him going back to jail during this time period. So I was like, is this gonna happen or no? Is this, just some, embellishments in the writing for TV value, or did this really happen? But I was like, I think he went back to jail this time.
It kind of confused me as well. I until that episode where Adam Clayton Powell was meeting with President Johnson, and he had mentioned about the infusion of cash, possibly be the Black community. And it kind of starts saying, oh, okay, I see where this is headed now. President Johnson made a comment, though, that I wanted to bring up, because when Powell said how his efforts could enhance and help the Black community, and, President Johnson said he's not interested in the Black community's vote right now.
More about the white vote.
White vote, And I'm like, wow, that is so clear and so...
You told the truth.
Exactly. I mean, even to today, we fight that same level of understanding from our presidents, our presidents, and the argument of whether Black people are, so monolithic that we have to stay with the Democratic Party because of it. Now, I don't want to get into a political fight here, but it just, when I heard that, I'm like, you know what? This is speaking the truth for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I really love how Adam Clayton Powell cleared that up. Like, he was really going to bat for the people that they were kind of painting as heathens and the rioters in the street. Like, they really painted them negatively, but he was like, you're painting them this way, but they're not agitators, they're victims. Like, a child was killed by a person in authority, so rightfully so, they are rioting. This is the response of the people that have been agitated in this way for so long. And it was crazy because it was, right after the Civil Rights Act had just been passed. So it was just all of this stuff going on, and you think you're making progress, and then boom, this happens and you're back to square one. So it's like, this constant feeling of like oppression and then hopelessness. Like, you think you're getting somewhere and you're not.
Well, he said, Powell said, there are two reasons people kill, and destroy things. He said one group, talking about the white folks, they kill to keep what they have, and black folks kill or destroy to demand what they have or what they should have. And that was so well put to the president, because the president at least understood, because he was all but ready to call Negroes or black folks heathens because they were burning their own city down. But again, Bumpy even put out that it's not our city. We don't own anything in it.
Well, that was when he was talking to the bosses. The bosses, they asked him that question too. Like, and that's a question that people ask today. Like,
all the time.
black folks, why do you always, destroy your neighborhoods and stuff? No, well, not really our neighborhoods. You guys own it, and that was the point.
Exactly.
But they also made the point about, like, well, the looting and stealing and stuff reflects badly on you guys, which is an argument that we still have today.
Yes. So I mean, so many relevant things. And then, just watching Bumpy deal with it, taking his accountant in, of course, played by Whoopi Goldberg. And even though he was, down and out in his situation, he still was generous with giving up money so that she could relocate and find a new place. So you kind of see, even though you're dealing with drug dealers and people who murder and steal and kill, they're showing the human side of Bumpy, the generosity and the community efforts that he was involved in. So you kind of get to see both sides of the coin, which, sometimes you don't always get that. So that's why I always kind of like applaud the writing, because nobody is monolithic, like we always say.
Right. And plus he reminded, like, even when before he even got to the point of robbery, he did try to get like a bridge loan and everything from the Harlem Bank and stuff. And then that one banker, that judge, was acting uppity and calling Bumpy thief and everything. But like, wait a minute, that investment you made was to the heroin. So everything, the police locked us up, every last one of us would be in the same cell. Like,
and you would need me if we are in the same cell. You're going to want to be my friend. And
exactly.
And that banker Charles, the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You're in this just like he is. And so you would think that they want to work with him as opposed to snubbing their nose at him. I mean, but it's what we do.
Yeah, so that was something else. But Bumpy, of course, he has the other option on the table, which is to work with this new person that Vincent Chin has placed in power while he's in jail. Joe Colombo. And we kind of got to see early on what Joe Colombo was all about, crushing people inside the car. And I'm like,
I forget his name, but he deserved it. Running his mouth.
He was popping off.
Oh yeah,
literally talking about Colombo while he's standing there. So you just, nobody deserves to die that horribly, but
you was asking for it.
You was asking for it for sure.
Yeah, and so Joe Colombo is kind of looked down on by some of the families because he's basically a car thief and a chop shop person, and so he's not really looked as highly by the families. But of course, he's trying to do things his own way. So he kind of is talking with Bumpy, like, let's cut the family. Like, we can work together directly. And, you know, we can do the cards. He came with the whole spiel. And then later on, he said he would sweeten the pot and throw in the heroin dealing and then the car chop scheme that he had worked up. And I really appreciated Bumpy's response, because he talked about like how, depending on what neighborhood he's in, he gets a certain level of respect or not. And he was like, that's really all I have. And I'm not willing to share that. So
well, let's talk about that.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because while I felt, I felt his reverence to remain in power and to stay true to Harlem. But you were between a rock and a hard place. And it really came down to whether you're going to take from your own or work with Joe Colombo. And I honestly think that Joe was sincere. I think that, well, I think to a point, sincere to a point. And here's my thing. I think Bumpy could have worked out a plan with him, because remember, he said, let's do our heroin deal and the chop shop. But they never really talked about percentages, and they never, because, Joe says, we can be partners. Well, what does that mean? And how does that look? Are we taking percentages here? Because
but
of
based
course,
on the conversation with Mamie, she made it seem like the deal was actually okay. Like, she was like, this
She
is
did
kind of
say-
favorable.
Well,
yeah, because
And he did
Mamie
sweeten the deal.
understood, and Mamie understood the whole picture. She's saying, yes, while it may seem like you got to go work for the man, but what are your alternatives? Coming up with, and just like
You
what
want to
he
go to
said,
war.
like, yeah, and Whoopi said, $3 million, that's $400,000 a week in interest that you can't pay back. And you have 3 or 4.
Well, they wanted $3 million by Friday.
By Friday.
And he had $1 million.
Right, but remember, Joe didn't want to take the one. He wants all of it, up front.
Which was the $3 million.
Exactly. Right. So, and if you couldn't get it on Friday, even if he were extended, you now have $3,400,000 to come up with. So, when you're looking at,
he did get it, and he got it to him on
well,
Thursday.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, before you knew you had it, you had to look at what was in front of you, what's on the table, and the question is, I'm thinking that Joe, and the reason I think that Joe might have wanted to work with him is because Joe was trying to build his own name up and get into this game. And I think he might have been kind of upset and through with the families, the 3 bosses anyway, or the 5 families anyway, because they really didn't look at him as much of any.
He said Shin was the only one that respected him.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they could have worked something out. And I think that with Bumpy's, overzealousness in terms of being the boss, I think it could have worked a different way had he, look, we know Bumpy to be a very charismatic person, and he seems to be able to get what he wants when he wants it.
But the thing is, though, Bumpy mentioned to Joe, he said, every time I partner with the Italians, I'm always the one that's getting screwed somehow, some way.
That's
true.
So
because of that history, I think he already knew what Joe was coming with.
Yeah, but of course,
how he was painting it to be.
And my question is, could he have put something in place to prevent that? I don't know. And again, I understand, but look at what he almost lost. He had no way of knowing how it was going to turn out. So,
but this is Bumpy Johnson we talking about.
Well, that's why I say I think Bumpy could have.
There's a will, there's a way.
I think Bumpy could have worked it out. I think he could have worked it out with Joe Colombo.
Well, he did work it out, because he was like, either you work for me or go to war. He told what Chaz, when he asked him, so like, what's really eating you? He was like, I want to keep Harlem mine. Like, for him to work with them is also giving them a piece of Harlem. And for him, that was like, no. And that the statement that he made about, like, at the end, when he went to them and said about the cage lion, once the cage lion is out and he got a taste of freedom, the freedom was before the Doochie burnt up. He saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And so he was like, for me to now go back into a deal that involves me being the man. Well, you heard what he said. This is the plantation, me the house. No, he was like, no, I'd rather give you my money and be my own man. And so
Yep.
He
that
didn't,
that
I know, but we've learned that freedom comes with a price. And certainly he was poised to pay the price for freedom, because had he not robbed that bank, the truck, he would have paid with his life. And because we didn't, there was no understanding of how he was going to come up with that $3 million. So he was ready to pay for freedom, for his life. And then where would Harlem be? So that's why I say, you at that particular point in time when the deal was being made, he had no idea how he was going to come up with $3 million in the span of a few days. And the question is, do you pay for freedom with your life and therefore lose the very thing that you were actually trying to save? Or do you try to sweeten a deal where Harlem is still yours and you can work with Joe and still be a benefit?
Our people have always paid for freedom with their lives.
Well, but I know, but at some point,
of our folks.
But at some point, you got to ask yourself, what's like, we all know if Bumpy lost his life, Harlem is down. It's gone. There's no one to replace Bumpy. And Bumpy has to understand his position and who he is. And I just think that had he worked with Joe, that Harlem.
I don't and think about it. Joe is new on the scene. Like, he's not.
That's the whole point. Which is exactly why
don't even trust him.
And
like
think
that.
about it. That's
so
why Joe. But that's exactly why Joe wanted to work with Bumpy, because he even said Bumpy is well respected and Bumpy knows the game. Joe didn't.
That was all talk.
Game.
He was
but it may have been talk, but Joe knows that he doesn't know the game like Bumpy knows the game.
But Joe has worked with other Black folks before too, and he knew Bumpy's history too, because he mentioned
that situation
with Stephanie Sinclair, the Queen. Yeah. It reminded me of, and those of y'all who hadn't seen Hoodlum, the original, the Bumpy was played by Lawrence Fishburne. Bumpy held her down when she was locked away, and he held Harlem down. And you guys that know Chris Brancato, the writer and the showrunner of this show, wrote Hoodlum as well. So if you've never seen Hoodlum, check that out too. But Joe Colombo was familiar with that history, so he knew what Bumpy was about, and I think he really did want to work with Bumpy. But I felt Bumpy about wanting to be his own man.
And don't get me wrong, I felt why Bumpy did what he did, and to be perfectly honest, if I were Bumpy, I probably would have said the same thing. But I'm on the other side. I'm looking at all this, and so I have the luxury of being able to sit back and analyze 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other situation. So what do you take?
Well, it all worked out, and Bumpy did his thing. He came through, but he did what he had to do. Okay,
I don't know if that's a workout though, because now
he's going to still work it out though.
But he's got Mamie now to deal with.
Huh?
He's got Mamie to deal with now.
Because Mamie knows he was responsible for that.
They know it was an inside job.
Exactly.
Everybody knows. And the thing is, I think Bumpy is still going to work it out though, to where that bank still gets the funding that they would do. It might take a little bit of time, but I think Bumpy is still going to work it out to where all things are settled. Everybody's happy, because those bankers were like, you asking us for more money and you already in debt with us. And they was talking real greasy. So I think Bumpy had something to prove to them anyway. He was like,
the reality,
tell me how you really feel.
And the reality is, in those situations, at least in today's time, the money is insured.
The money is insured, right? FDIC.
But remember now, we're talking about a period of time. It's a Black bank, and would the money have necessarily been insured because they believed it was an inside job? So that's I think we're going to have to get to in the next episode, whether that money does come back. It should come back because the money was stolen and the money is insured. But during those times, you didn't have a lot of Black banks. Liberty Bank was probably one of the only Black bank, particularly in Harlem, in New York at that time. So It's just questionable whether the government would consider insuring the money because it was apparent an inside job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how that plays itself out, because I was thinking initially maybe they can blame this on the riots or something like that, but I was like, no, it was broad daylight, wasn't nobody out there, so that definitely looked like an inside job.
Timing.
So I can't wait to see how he works himself out of that one. And we still got a lot to cover. The situation with Malcolm from last season came back up because we know Captain Henry and Omar were out there plotting on his life, and of course Bumpy took Henry out, but Omar was still out there on the run. And so Malcolm has been fully armed, like he got everything on lock. He got security 24/7. It seems like they have sent their kids up to Boston with family, and he and his wife are just being looked out for by Bumpy security. And his wife kind of seemed like she was over it, like, I want to get back to some normalcy, like. And even Elise encouraged him, like, why don't you try to start your own mosque and build up your own following, because it's really dangerous for you, and you should try to do your own thing versus sticking with these people who have outcasted you. So that was interesting to see. Like, it seemed like he and Elise have a whole lot of chemistry, but they're really holding each other, like keeping things at bay, because they know they ain't supposed to be together.
There's a little more chemistry going on with he and Elise. And, Betty is sitting there, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing, Malcolm? But I understand, she's a beautiful woman, and I'll keep
close to Betty too. She's close to Betty as well.
I don't think she would allow herself to cross that line.
Right.
And then also because of his relationship with her father, Bumpy is very much so involved with Malcolm. So I think Elise knows how to keep things in proper place.
I don't know. Elise loves that man.
Well, she does love him. She does love him. And Betty is aware.
And Betty
But, Malcolm has been saying a lot, and it seems like he's inciting people and agitating them a little bit. And so that's another thing that Betty is worried about. And, I got to say, the new Malcolm, he is doing a great job, like I said earlier, filling that role, because he kind of just fell into the role and didn't miss a beat this episode. I wrote, wow. Like,
he looks just like him, too.
He did. He did. So awesome casting. Great job by the actor as well. And then, like, going on to the scene where Malcolm gets to confront Omar. Omar is coming and basically pleading for his life, pleading for forgiveness. And Malcolm decides that he's going to kind of be the bigger person. He's like, I really want to kill you. But, I'm going to let cooler heads prevail here, because I don't want blood on my hands or on Bumpy's. So I'm really hoping that Omar is going to lay low and play it cool, but we know how this ends. And, Omar also mentioned that, Elijah Muhammad was not involved in, the plot for them to take his life. And so it's kind of like, is that the full truth? Or were they lone wolves, or is there a bigger scheme going on here? So,
well,
like I said, we know how this ends.
Well, you remember in the last season that Elijah Muhammad said, let Malcolm's problems play out, and since and let in other words, let those chips fall where they may. And I with Omar could have had him killed when Malcolm went to the mosque in last season. He could have killed him right then and there, because I forget the other guy's name. Henry wanted him shot on sight. And Omar said, no, that's not going to happen, because Elijah Muhammad said, do not harm him. Let Muhammad
play out
and let it play out. So I understood why Malcolm kind of said, no, we're not going to kill him. And I like that about Malcolm, because again, killing one brother isn't going to solve the problem. Omar had a seemingly duty to do, but he didn't carry it out. So Omar literally spared his life, and therefore he's returning the favor.
Yeah. So
he didn't want that. He didn't want blood on his hand, because he was worrying about his own personal relationship with God.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so looking forward to seeing how they portray, the things that go on with Malcolm, and is this gonna be the last season because it's close to that time period where he was assassinated.
It looks like it's just gonna
It's
be
imminent.
Yeah, it's imminent.
The last thing I'll touch on in this episode, Stella, Lord, Stella is a woman scorned.
Oh, how about Olympia though? How about Olympia? And
mother's foul.
Yeah,
well, it's her stepmother.
Yeah, Olympia.
That woman, she gets the hands.
Oh my God, she literally gets the hands. What's wrong with these mothers today? I mean, she literally calls for a hit on her daughter.
Yes. Wow. Yes. But I mean, Stella, I know that's how that kind of mob life operates. Like if you're a rat, that's a huge stain on somebody.
Yeah.
And so to do that to your own father too, it's kind of like that's you can't come back from that. And they're saying that even her father Vincent was saying, no, leave her alone, let her stay in the house, whatever, even though she did all these things, she ratted us out, let her be. But mom just can't let it slide, and she's over there talking with Tommy, who is one of the heads of the other families, and she's like, Stella knows about all our illegal dealing, yours, all the family, so who's to say that she won't keep going and going and going. And mom even suggests that Vincent would be okay with it if Stella got taken out. And she's like, of course he can't have the calls because they're recorded, but just trust and believe that he's cool. Like, she's a rat. I'm like,
she was foul. There's no way that he would be okay with that.
Not only not being okay, if he found out that Olympia had anything to do with her death, she would be looking.
That's why I'm wondering. I'm wondering if she's gonna get clipped this season.
Look, and I think he went up to Stella and apologized to her beforehand. I think Stella could sense it. It's like, okay, this is way off.
But she
when she made the statement.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, because you're about to say the same thing I was about to say.
About when she said, "It'll be the last time that I'll ever put my hands on
you."
I was like, yeah, and Stella looked, I was like, I think that kind of, her spidey senses was tingling then.
Exactly. And let me tell you what I think Stella will do. She'll go to that jail, she'll talk to her daddy, and she's going to say, Olympia tried to take me out with Tommy. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, if she doesn't go, because I don't think she wants anything to do with her father right now. I don't even think she would do that. I think she would take matters into her own hands. She had already talked about moving out and trying to find a job. Old boy that was asking for sexual favors too. He can get the hands as well.
The
hands and the foot. I mean, but I love her response.
About shorthand. The shorthand.
That was funny.
But no, I say that she would do that because she despises Olympia. I mean, can you imagine? First of all, that woman is going to smack me, and as she said, all the things you put up with and dealt with. No, I can see her making a phone call.
I think right now she's not sure that it's Olympia. I think she thinks right now that it's coming from the bosses.
I don't think so. I think she knows. I mean, the worst that Olympia
in the back of her head, but I think she thinks that they made the call, the other bosses.
I tell you what,
there's no way that they can go back under the same roof. I do know that. There's no way.
And she will know once she finds out. Once Olympia finds out that Stella is alive. I don't know if she can hold that on her face. So it's going to be interesting. I really want to see how that part plays out.
Yeah, Stella knows how to hold her own though. I'm really she's sharp. I'm impressed with how sharp she is, how perceptive she is, and then handling herself. It seemed like she was gonna spare Louis, but then he kept amping up the situation, and she like, I gotta do this. She shot him in the hand, then she shot him in the head.
No,
she couldn't spare him, because I was like, he would have kept coming. I mean, he was there for a reason, so I was like, you gotta finish him.
Yeah, I mean, at that point she had no choice. So Stella held her own this episode, and I hope she makes it through this season. It's not looking good.
Well, Robert, the FBI agent, seems to think that he doesn't need her testimony, and I think that's a good thing. except to say,
well, he's trying to save her from the heat of the other families, because he's like, if you do this, this becomes public record. Like, they'll know
yeah.
all
But
that you did, all that you said.
I'm not.
And he's
So
trying
that
to
makes you a target.
But I'm not sure if he's more inclined to be saving her, or is he more inclined to
saving his
understand?
case.
Yeah, the jury isn't going to like hearing that Stella was being dealing with a
With a
black
black
man.
With a
man.
black man.
Yeah, and
Right. That's what he's doing.
that's what he's doing.
He's trying to save that case.
Yeah, he's trying to save the case. That's his premier responsibility and concern. So you know, that's where he is. That's his motivation.
Yeah. So that, I mean, this episode kicked it off. I mean, they came back with the bang. It was so much going on this episode, and it just has me looking forward to all that's in store for the rest of the season. Because like I said, we know historically there's a lot of stuff about to go down, and you know, I just can't wait to see how they portray it, because they always do such a fantastic job in writing and doing the storytelling. And then of course, like I say, the acting is always phenomenal. The whole cast is super solid, and it's so cool to see Giancarlo Esposito playing Clayton Powell. But I've been watching him on Netflix on Kaleidoscope as well, and he's killing
killing it. But before we go, I want to talk about the robbery itself. Who was it that shot the black police officer?
I think that was Dale.
Yeah, Dale.
Did he
have to kill the black police officer? Do you think
I felt bad, but the gun was drawn on him, and he was probably going to try to take Bumpy in, and at that point it was do or die.
Yeah.
But the headshot though, did we had to go for a headshot?
It is what it is, man. I mean, I think when you are in that situation and it's like you said, do or die, you got to get up out of there quick.
Yeah.
It's like
their backs was up against the wall. Think about it. Like, what was going to happen if he didn't have the $3 million by Friday?
And then we always know what happens.
Like, you know, it was do or die.
And we know what happens when you leave witnesses, because Bumpy turned around and actually faced the officer. And we know he has a distinctive look. So it's like, you got the mask on, but I could probably tell that's you.
But the two drivers were still sitting on the ground, though.
Yeah, they were still sitting on the ground.
Right, but they didn't get a good look at
and they're white. They think all black folks look alike anyways. But what it does though, it puts Bumpy and the organization in an entirely different schematic now, because of the fact that you now killed a federal official, a guard, and
that's the part that could be the curveball.
No, that's a curveball, because your previous crimes are one thing, but now you got a murder charge of a federal officer, and you know, you've just anteed the pot. That you know, well, first of all, you're robbing a bank, and then you're going to kill a federal officer. That puts you 2 notches above. You know, you're now the most wanted. You're on that most wanted list now. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if that comes back up. I'm sure that's not just going to go to rest.
That's not going to go away.
I don't know.
Bumpy knew it too, because you know, he stood there a minute. He had to be pulled away because he was asking, "Did you have to kill him?" You know, I think, I don't know what he said exactly. I'm not sure if he said, "Did you have to shoot him in the head" or something? But Bumpy understands the consequences of that move.
Yeah, he's gonna hear it from Mamie too.
Oh yeah, Mamie's gonna be. I don't know. I'd be more afraid of the government or Mamie.
Right, messing up her opportunity.
You know, golly day.
Yeah, so I'm so looking forward to seeing what else this season has in store for us. Do you guys have any other closing thoughts you want to add?
No, I was just happy to see it back on the screen again, and it was worth the wait.
Well,
absolutely.
The other thing, Stella has a body now. So what does she do?
Stella's been had bodies.
She's been had a body. She had a body last season.
Yes, but I'm saying, what does she do with that body in the house? How does she get rid of it? Who's she going to call?
Nope.
I think she just got out of Dodge. Yeah, I think she just got out of Dodge. I don't think she's worrying about that. Let the message be seen that your attempt failed.
So Olympia's going to come home with a body in the house.
Hey, serves her right.
Exactly.
That's what you get.
Your attempt failed. Message received.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for watching. Please drop down in the comment section and give us your thoughts on this episode and your predictions for the rest of the season. Also, make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Click that subscribe button right down there in the corner and the notification bell so you get alerted every single time we post, because we have some stuff up our sleeves. I ain't gonna say too much, but we definitely have some things in the works and we don't want you to miss it. So do that. And also follow us on all social media platforms at The Spot Real Talk on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We're everywhere. Give us a follow to keep up with us and be in the know on all that we have going on. Do you guys have any last words?
I was gonna say, just please check out our playlist and check out our interview with Chris Brancato, the showrunner of Godfather of Harlem. It was a great discussion.
Yes, indeed. Please do that.
Absolutely.
All right. So on that note, I think we'll call it a night. Thank you guys again, and make sure you're back next week for a discussion of episode 2. Night.
Night.